Before we move on to our next panel, and as our farmers get dialed into to our platform, I just wanted to give you some fun factoids about the Dairy Innovation Hub. So between the 3 campuses, there are more than 50 funding awards that have already been made to researchers across the 3 campuses in those 4 priority areas. And of the money that is been allocated to the hub for this current biennium, over $5 million of that has been allocated to hire new dairy talent in the form of faculty members, graduate students, postdocs, faculty research fellows, et cetera. So really putting those dollars to continue to crank out great research like you've learned about today. So it looks like our panelists are ready to go. So I will do a brief intro. And again, just want to re-welcome everybody who might be just joining us to learn about what the Dairy Innovation Hub has been up to for the last year. This afternoon is really dedicated to our stakeholders. So the populations that are being served by the work coming out of the Dairy Innovation Hub. You just heard from some members of the supply chain. Now you're going to hear from some farmers, and later on, we're going to hear from elected leaders. Again, as a reminder, if you've got questions for our panelists, go ahead and pop them into the chat, which is on your media player. Anything we don't get to, we'll definitely follow up after the event. So with that, it's my pleasure to welcome Shelly Meyer, who is the Executive Director of the Professional Dairy Producers of Wisconsin organization. She's going to be moderating today's discussion. So welcome, Shelly.
Well, thank you, Maria, and thanks for the great work that you're doing to bring this program together. It's exciting to have the opportunity to talk about the Dairy Innovation Hub. And actually, as a dairy farmer and someone who has the privilege of working with and for dairy farmers, it's even doubly more exciting to see the Dairy Innovation Hub hit the ground and instantly start working for us. You know, when I think back of the history and look back over the last probably about 6 years since the whole concept of finding a way that we can infiltrate critical dollars into dairy research so we can continue to lead in discovering bold new ways of really answering tomorrow's problems. To see it come to fruition like it has here with the Dairy Innovation Hub is really exciting. And I'll just take us back a little bit, and I'll soon hand it off to a colleague of mine, Mitch Breunig, and have him really tell some of that story, because Mitch was in on this from the ground up. As the Professional Dairy Producers Board, we had listened over and over to the needs of our research and our community, saying, you know, we have had really a decline of the amount of hands that are focused on doing dairy research. And it wasn't just the research that helps us make another 100 pounds of milk. It is all the parts of research that would help us discover ways that we can do more with less when we look at our environmental resources, discover new products that help us provide nourishment that starts on our fields and ends up in a glass of milk on someone else's table, all the way through all the different aspects where dairy ripples out. And the dollars just weren't there. And a group of people just kept working and trying to figure out how this could really come together. And we worked closely with the department and Dr. Kent Weigel and all of the different parts of it. And finally, it seemed that we had a plan. And we want to thank our leaders within our university and our colleges. And but really, this was a request that came from grassroots dairy farmers really seeing a need that if we're going to continue to lead the world in providing product and research and ideas, it all starts with an investment. And I also want to thank the vision of our legislators that said, yes, the state of Wisconsin is going to continue to be the hub where the world turns for the answers and the leadership of dairy. And, you know, in a year like 2020, when a lot of us are looking for things that we can really celebrate, Dairy Innovation Hub is it. It is, I'm going to say that if I could put it in my Christmas card, this would be the thing that would shine the most about 2020 on my side. As we look at what is an investment in research, specifically looking at dairy, how is that going to make a difference for others if you're not in the dairy community? I want to share a little bit of a story, and then I'm going to turn it over and we're going to introduce our dairy producers and colleagues that are here today, and they'll share more of their perspective. But having an opportunity about 4 years ago to travel, I was in Czech Republic, and I was on some dairy farms very close actually to Poland. And I mentioned that I was a Wisconsin dairy farmer, and suddenly there was about 20 people all speaking English, but they're all speaking with very different accents from all over Europe. And they were asking tons of questions. And suddenly they started doing things like, do you know Dr. Paul Fricke? Do you know Kent Weigel? How about Dr. Nigel Cook? And they started naming a lot of the people that are common names here for us in Wisconsin. They were talking about research. And they just thought, man, if you come from Wisconsin, you automatically have the answers for everything. And it really drove home for me what I think I had been told and often repeated, but I had to really experience. And that is, the world is leaning on us for answers. And they had questions about animal health and animal care, which they see us as being experts. They wanted to know how we use less water and how we were producing more milk and products on less land, and environmentally and all sorts of things. So the Dairy Innovation Hub is a great investment, and I'm excited to turn it over. I want to introduce my colleagues, fellow dairy farmers that have been involved with different parts of the hub and also different parts of the community in Wisconsin that will be sharing their perspective today. And in introducing, I'm going to just run down through that list, and I think it's best that they each share their stories. First, we have Amy Penterman, and Amy is from Double Dutch Dairy in the beautiful area of Thorpe, Wisconsin. I bet everybody knows where Thorpe, Wisconsin is. Secondly, dairy producer that I'm privileged to have worked very, very closely with professional dairy producers, and that's Mitch Breunig from Mystic Valley Dairy in Sauk City. And then next, Katie Roth. Katie Roth, a young and very inspiring dairy leader in our community from Banner Ridge Farms near Platteville. So we covered quite a geographic area. And then I am proud to be not only working with professional dairy producers of Wisconsin, but also to be a dairy farmer from Slinger, Wisconsin. So I think we've pretty much covered the state map. I'm going to turn it over to each of you to kind of share a little bit of your background. And let's start with Amy.
Hello, like Shelly said, I'm Amy Penterman. My husband and I dairy farm in Thorpe, which is in Clark County. Or better known as, we have more cows than people in our county. I am also a crop insurance agent, and I work out of a home office, which allows me the opportunity to be part of the day-to-day management operations of the farm. We have 5 children. 2 of them are out of high school. We've got 3 young boys that are still in elementary school. So we're navigating through this virtual school reality that we live in right now. We milk 850 cows 3 times a day. We crop about 1,200 acres. We focus more on cows than we do crops. We custom hire all of our crops done. My husband is definitely a cow man, and cow comfort is his passion, and that's our focus at our dairy. And we leave the crops up to the experts. Our heifers stay at home until they're 9 months old, and then they go to a heifer raiser, and then they come back to the farm 2 months before calving. So all in all, our passion for our farm is really stems around cow comfort and efficiency, and that's what drives our day-to-day decisions on the farm.
You know, Amy, just listening to that description, you wonder, wow, how did they get it all done? But I know that you make time for it. Every time I talk to you, it's something going on with the kids and the business, but you make time to be a leader in the dairy community. So thank you for that as well. I'm going to turn it over to Katie Roth next. Katie, tell us about yourself and your family.
Sure. Hi there, everyone. My name is Katie Roth from Banner Ridge Farms. Our farm is located in Grant County, right near Platteville, Wisconsin here. It's kind of cool because our farm is what I consider a blended family farm, and that our partners, John and Luann Shea, my husband TJ, actually started working for them about 13 years ago in college, and he never left the farm, and he actually became a partner a few years ago. And with that, then I married him, and then John and Luann's kids, Jill and Steve, are also on the farm. So really for us, it's kind of cool because for our farm, we've got 5 families. Our farm supports 5 families, and we have about 15 employees. And to support everybody on our farm, we're milking about 500 cows. Those cows are milked a double 16 parallel parlor 3 times a day. And if you would have asked me, would we ever be milking that many cows, I probably would have said no. And some other unique aspects about our farm, we do grow corn, alfalfa, and this was the first year that we did sorghum. So that was a neat thing to do this year. Our milk goes to Roth, and the majority of it is made into cheese. And kind of the big things on our farm is animal welfare, animal husbandry, and really that environmental stewardship is very important to us, and connecting those shared values with consumers. And with our farm, I love it because we're always striving for improvement. We're always striving to do better. And kind of our motto on the farm is Faith Family Farm. Our faith drives so many decisions and just our outlook on life. Family is so important to us, and obviously we love farming. And with that too, we really pride ourselves on caring for our neighbors and serving other people and being part of the community as well. And we have a daughter, Stella. She's 2. And when I'm not working on the farm or with my family, I also work here at UW Platteville in the College of BILSA, Business, Industry, Life Science, and Agriculture. And with that, I do a lot of event planning and outreach, event coordination. So really, it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Nobody is ever going to say that the producers I work with are slackers. Holy man, we get tired just listening to these bios between the business, the community, the family, and all of the outreach that you do. Thank you, Katie, for that introduction. Mr. Mitch Breunig, tell us a little bit about yourself and give them a background on that beautiful dairy you run.
Hi, everybody. Mitch Breunig from Mystic Valley Dairy in Sauk City. On our family's farm, we currently milk about 430 cows, do about 1,000 acres of crops, and try to be really involved in our community and do a lot of things that improve the dairy industry. I was thinking back, reflecting a little bit this morning. My dad 30 years ago was no-tilling corn and working on sort of all the things that are buzzwords now. And he had one of the first TMR mixers in our area. He had a nutritionist that came to the farm. And when I think back to, what's just standard on every farm, that's sort of the background that I came from, to do things differently that other people aren't doing and try to find new things to get better. I loved hearing the other 2 people talk about the mottos and the things that they look at on their farm. And we always talk about, can we do something 1% better? And it's like, do 1,000 things 1% better. And that's how we're going to succeed and have a viable business that's going to allow our family to be in the dairy industry for the future. When I look back at the Dairy Innovation Hub and kind of where it started out, I think one of the really two things come to mind. One is, don't take no for an answer. And, I think we were told no quite a bit. And basically, the people that we were trying to work with and work for, they said, come up with a plan that's going to make bold discoveries. And so we just went to work and talked and worked and got a lot of people involved. I think that was one of the biggest things, is collaboration, getting a lot of different input from a lot of different people. And as we, worked to get this together, I think I just want to congratulate everybody that was working on it, because I think we came up with a plan that just people couldn't say no to. And today, listening to the speakers and the collaboration and the different projects that are going on, I just think it's really neat to see that the investment we've made in these people, these scientists that are just amazing people, but let's get amazing people to work on dairy. And I think that's been maybe the biggest aha moment, to get these amazing scientists that were working on things that weren't dairy, but we got them to come into the dairy space because we were able to get them to collaborate and have some funding. So that, I think, is what's been really neat about the Dairy Innovation Hub as we have launched off here.
Mitch, do you remember what year it was that we started to gather, and specifically that famous chart that I think is on the back of one of your whiteboards in your office there? How, was it 5-6 years ago? I lose track of time.
I do too, but I do remember my daughter is a student at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I would text her and say, hey, I'm on campus today working on the future of the dairy industry. And she's graduated this spring, so maybe it's 4 years ago. I know that seems to be a pretty good timeline.
Yeah, I know that it was a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of people, when Mitch says you hear a lot of no's. The one thing that I remember the clearest is this was the number one priority of the group that I work for, professional dairy producers. And that board said, this is the most important thing that can happen for the good of the industry, the whole dairy sector. And for all dairy farmers out there and the folks that we have here today, I think it's the best example of persevering and the positivity that comes out of perseverance. Don't take no, and having a can-do attitude. And that the other thing that I think that the Dairy Innovation Hub and the leadership of Mitch and others also, you guys were a rock. You had an idea and you toss that rock in, and that ripple that comes from it is going to benefit a whole lot of people. What we have to have that collaboration that you talked about, Mitch. And, if each of you could kind of share with me a vision that you have, or even a challenge that you have on your own dairies that you would like to see tackled or talked about and worked on and researched at the 3 universities that are connected here, what would that be? Because that's going to be a ripple. These ideas from all over our communities that need to be looked at and dove into, that's a ripple for what'll cast out new ideas. Who wants to start?
I'll go first, Shelly. I kind of enjoyed this, thinking of new research ideas, and I was asking everybody on the farm what they thought. For me on the farm, I deal a lot with the herd health, cow management, and some of the research topics that I would love to learn more about and incorporate them onto our farm if possible. A big one is cow chiropractic care. I'll be honest, it's kind of, I think, maybe a new field. And as a human, I go to the chiropractor on a regular basis, and I think it would fit in really nicely with one of the priority areas about animal welfare. It's just, from what I've seen, I have a very good working relationship with our vet. It's just not something that we maybe talk a lot about or I know much about. Also, another thing maybe would be to be able to have some cow side research done to detect hypocalcemia or low milk fever, or I should say low calcium in cows, and to make it be affordable. I brought in from home, I test all of our cows for ketosis at home using our BHBA meter. And I was thinking well, they have this for ketosis, is maybe something available like that for milk fever. And the other 2 ideas I had kind of have to deal with the community. And that is there maybe a best way? We all know we have to communicate with our neighbors, and more people are removed from agriculture. But what is really maybe the best way or the best modes and the frequency to kind of connect with the non-farm public? It's we know we need to do it, but maybe what are the best modes and the best ways to do that? And the last idea I had was maybe when talking about air quality, minimizing odor from the lagoons and things like that. The other day I was at the farm and had my daughter with me and I smelled something. I thought she had a dirty diaper. And I thought, wait a minute, that's not what that is. But then I realized it was a windy day. And of course, we live up on a hill and I could smell our lagoon. And I thought, this is something that needs some attention.
You know, those are definitely great things. You know, when you think of what's happening up in Thorpe, Wisconsin, your world and the reach that you have, Amy, what would be some of the areas that you'd like to see our university systems with this infiltration of being able to focus on some dollars towards research?
You know, I'll bounce off of what Katie said about the manure. You know, manure is one of the most costliest things that we have to deal with on the farm. And it's part of day-to-day life on the farm. And with our manure, is there a better way to reduce odor? Is there an easier way to get rid of that manure in a more economical way? With that, how can we recycle the water more on our farm? You know, we recycle our water 2 times, but a lot of water goes into our manure pit. What can we do better on our dairies to recycle water and reuse it and overcome? You know, we do have innovation out there, but then we're regulated where we're not able to use some of that innovation. So how can we come together and be able to innovate and not have regulations stop us from that innovation? Also with that, the environmental impacts of crop rotation and no-till planting. And we've got, in my area, we don't have a lot of watersheds in our area. How can individual farms create an impact on the environment and lead by example? And what kinds of things can we do to kind of infect our neighbors to be doing the same thing? The other thing, this is kind of throwing it out there. I was talking to my husband, and is there a way, and this is totally pie in the sky, can we develop some type of biodegradable plastic over our piles? Because everybody knows how much plastic we go through when we're covering our piles. That could be possibly derived from a milk byproduct, a cheese byproduct, or corn or soybeans that can be biodegradable, that we're recycling that plastic that we put on top of our piles. So something just out there as a challenge for just challenge the thinking of, is there a different way to be able to utilize plastics on our farm?
Pie in the sky ideas. Others will call them great ideas and innovation. So you just keep dreaming on those and sharing them. Mitch, some ideas and needs and challenges on your dairy that you'd like to see.
Well, I think the manure thing is just a really big thing that we all need to address. It seems a lot of the solutions are hard to scale at smaller size farms. And, you know, whether it's manure digesters or separations and those kinds of things, it seems like it takes a larger farm to scale those, to get them to pay off. And are there some things that we can come through with some research to scale those for smaller farms and be able to allow them to capture some of these brand new technologies? You know, I look at one of them right now. I've been on the Innovation Center for U.S. Dairy, and there's a lot of talk about sustainability. One of the products that came through there was cow pots. So they're actually able to make flower pots out of digested manure solids. And, you know, that's a product that they're able to sell and further use it up the food chain instead of have it be something that's a waste. And I just think there's a lot of opportunity for that sort of innovation. One other thing that we're kind of looking at on our farm right now is, you know, our butter fat and our protein, we produce it. We actually have a parlor in our basement. And so the physical mechanical part of pumping that milk from the basement up into our tankers, are we losing some of our butter fat and solids that we're producing? Are they being broken down because of the way that system works? And is there a way to maybe more gently move our milk so that more of the stuff that our cows produce end up at the cheese plant? And I think that has an opportunity to, you know, not only benefit the cheese plant, but benefit the farmer, because what the cows are producing is what you're actually getting sold and paid for. And then I just think, you know, cover crops and how we're able to grow cover crops, that water efficiency that maybe we're going to gain from those. And can we develop, you know, new forages that we're able to feed the cows, maybe harvest at different times rather than have your alfalfa harvest and your corn silage harvest? Is there some other different products that we could grow on our fields to really give us a diverse group of crops that we're growing and not just have a sort of monoculture of crops? So there's just, we're only limited by our imagination.
In our imagination, if we just think over the course of our lifetimes, how much technology has come through that has improved human health and our human life, if that could continue to move at the speed that it has, our industry is moving so much faster. Think about what could happen. As I make a reflection, I'd like to see there be studies that really dive into things that help us in our overall health. I think a lot of us on farms, we have, maybe it's because of the exercise that we have or hopefully the good diets that we have, but I know a lot of folks that, how many of you have experienced many sick days? I never miss work for being sick. And I think that there's something it's got to be something to milk, because that's a main part of our diet. But if we can continue to cross over and do more research on how it can be proven to save a life, or, I think of having in our family's been touched with cancer. My sister has dealt with a bout with cancer, and look where we've come with things like stem cell and that type of research. And if you look where dairy has pioneered things in the past, where it's IVF and some of those kind of things have been common technologies that we use on our farm that has made a difference in human life. If we see that kind of advancements in the future, we are truly making a ripple effect on making life better for all of our communities. So talking about some of the things that are happening in our communities, and I hate to bring up the C word this time being COVID, but how has that in 2020 impacted you guys personally? And what do you think, how has it changed maybe some of the management philosophies that you have been working around on your dairy?
I can start out. On our farm, we really saw the need for cross-training and making sure that everybody knows how to do everyone else's job and who can fill in where. And, all hands on deck if there is an issue. We've been fortunate on our dairy that we haven't had to deal with the COVID, luckily, knock on wood. Our community is kind of a hotbed right now, so we're trying to take extra precautions. We try and just make sure that we're extra sanitizing. We make sure that employees are staying that 6-foot distance, and how can we make sure we're not all gathered in a small area. So it's just rethinking, we focus so much on udder health. We focus on calf health and cow health, and what are all the things we're doing to make our cows and calves healthy. So now we just have to look at that focus on our people, keeping them healthy and safe.
That is a great way to approach it. Does Katie or Mitch, do you want to add anything? Any of the changes that you've made on your dairies because of, or management realizations that you've had because of 2020 and the lessons that we've went through with this virus?
Sure, Shelly. Yeah. What a nightmare. I can say that joking, but I will never forget people having to dispose of milk because there was just nowhere for it to go. And that's every farmer's worst dream. And just having to relive that, and just your emotions, just thinking about your fellow farmers and having to go through that, it just really pulled at my heartstrings. And COVID has really caused me to think about, like how Amy was mentioning about employee health as well, and keeping our employees healthy and safe and making sure that they know that we care. And ultimately, it's not like we can stop. We don't have robots on our farm, so somebody has to be there. Somebody has to milk the cows and feed them. It doesn't stop on a dime. But I have to say, something that I thought about, and I've seen other people talk about this too, is that social distancing is the one thing that farmers have had down for a while. And the reason I say that is because if you think about calves, and on our farm, all of our calves, once they're born, they go into huts. So they can see each other, but they can't physically come in contact with each other. So we have been maintaining their social distance of 6 feet for a while. So we've been doing good at that, at least.
Absolutely. You know, Mitch, I'm going to go right straight to the Dairy Innovation Hub. And as a farmer, and you've been in this discussion from day one, and as chairman of the Dairy Innovation Hub, what do you want to share with the faculty and the staff of the 3 universities that they really need to know and think about in regards to what's happening on our Wisconsin farms?
So I think, farms really have to have, we have to be profitable. That's the number one thing. We have to be profitable. We're businesses. And so we're always looking for new things that'll help us sort of, take better care of our cows, take better care of the environment, and also take better care of our business. And so that, 3-legged stool, any of these new things that we're looking at really need to be a part of that. But I think another thing that's really important, and when you look at Platteville, River Falls, and Madison, and if you did a 3-hour, circle, like radius of that sort of those 3 institutions, somebody's going to correct me on this, but I think 20% of the cows in America live in that 3-hour window. And so every one of these farms is a research opportunity. There's situations on, a lot of farmers want to be collaborative. And so, we not only the Pioneer Farm, the Men Farm up at River Falls, the Arlington Farm, but we have all these other farms that are available to do research, to look at some of these new opportunities. And I think that's going to be something that's really, really important. I know in particular on my farm, we've just always done research with the university. The double off-sync protocol, the very early part of that was done at our farm. Some of the Nigel Cook stall design stuff, that very first study was done at our farm. And even now the new ketosis, BHBA, keto monitor stuff, we've been part of that as well. And so we're just always looking for that opportunity to help do research to not only improve my farm, but the cool thing about farmers is we really, we social distance, but we still like to talk to each other. And so if something's working on my farm, I'm going to tell Katie and Amy, hey, we tried this at our farm and it worked really well. It might not work for you, but man, it really solved a problem at my farm. And I think that's what this, again, has the opportunity to do. And the other thing is the students that we're training that are going to go back out and work in our industry, to have this latest and greatest information at their fingertips is really going to make them a more desirable employee to come to my farm.
For years, we've been talking about in Wisconsin, the Wisconsin idea. And this seems to be like the true living, the Wisconsin idea. The discoveries are made here. Wisconsinites have the first opportunity to gather that technology and know-how and utilize it. Our schools can teach it, and then we share it with everybody as we're interconnected across the country. Amy, what are some of the thoughts that you have as far as the role of the Dairy Innovation Hub, the future, and maybe even some of the challenges?
And like Mitch said, it's getting out on our farms and learning from one another. And one thing that I see as a crop insurance agent is I think sometimes farmers put themselves in a box and they don't think, well, that's someone who milks 1,500 cows. They can afford that on their farm. So that's out of it for me. And so how can we create a learning environment for 50 cow dairies all the way up to whatever size dairies that we can learn from one another? And that how can we be efficient? And, that's what drives a lot of us on our farm is efficiency. So we're going to make decisions based on cost and our cost savings and how efficient is that going to make the farm, and of course, cow health and cow comfort. So how can we create different avenues for all farmers to tap into, and so that they have an option to be able to learn and grow and innovate. Because a lot of times what holds us back from the next generation stepping onto the farm is that innovation. And so our future generations can come on the farm. The other thing, I'm very active with our FFA alumni in our town, in our community. And it's our youth in our high schools that may not be from a farm because we're losing those farm kids out there. How can we keep them connected to agriculture and know that they can have such a huge part of agriculture and be part of the next generation of making us all successful in our state with dairy?
That's exactly right. So, one of the things that I remember in the process that Mitch talked about of the Dairy Innovation Hub coming to fruition was a meeting where we brought faculty from Platteville, River Falls, and Madison. They knew each other's names. They even knew what research they're working on, but that was the first time they'd been in the same room. One of the most exciting things that we've seen in an industry that we often said could collaborate better or doesn't collaborate at all is phenomenal integration and collaboration with the three universities. I will also say, in the process of the Dairy Innovation Hub coming to life, it was having the collaboration of every single farm group in the state of Wisconsin work together. And Mitch, you and I have talked about this a lot. Why do you think that was true this time?
I really think we all looked at the future and we talked about, we're not going to notice the lack of research and science and progress today, but where we're going to notice it, if we're not doing it today, 20 years from now, we're going to still be asking the same questions. We're still going to be having the same problems. And the questions we answer today or ask today are going to provide the solutions for 20 years from now. And I think everybody sort of had that vision that it was really important. And, the state of Wisconsin, we still are the dairy state. A lot of the jobs in this state focus around that, agriculture in general. And so I think it was really important for everyone to pull together and sort of have that vision for what's the future going to look like if we don't do this.
Well, and that is a great point. Today we could say that the dairy sector in Wisconsin is equivalent to $46 billion of the state's economy. We're not a .com. It doesn't come and go. The dairy industry is strong here, and the rest of the world will do business where they see innovation and discoveries happening. And we want to make sure that we continue to be a driving force, especially during such an uncertain time. Katie, if you could give a message out to all of the groups and all the dairymen, dairy farmers out there, what would your message be about advocating that we continue to be strong with the Dairy Innovation Hub?
Well, the Dairy Innovation Hub, really, I was thinking about this the other day, and I'll be honest, research it's kind of one of those things that I've taken for granted. And what I mean by that is, research really is so critical to the decisions that we as farmers that we make on our farms. For example, when we are doing our milking procedures, what's the best way to do that? What's the best way to feed our cows? How do we keep our cows comfortable and happy? And there's just so much that plays into that. And how you were mentioning, Shelly, those names of the researchers at Madison, Platteville, or River Falls that are known worldwide, but it's always been something that I've kind of taken for granted. So really, research is a very, very integral part of what we do on the farm, and we need that, and we should support that. But with that too, it's interesting too. COVID's been a really interesting year. I was looking at just the amount that our milk check has changed in the past 5 months, and the swing and the variation in that. But there's so much that goes behind that. But really, as dairy farmers, we love what we do, and we want the best things to be happening on our farms.
That's exactly right. And to keep things moving forward, to have a vision for the future and put your money where your mouth is. If we want to have continue to be a leader, there's a cost of that, and having the dollars that of funding that research definitely shows wisdom, not only wisdom, but vision for the future. I want to turn it over to those that are live streaming and are participating with us today. If there's any questions that we have out there, you've got a great opportunity to connect with 3 real rock stars in the dairy industry that have been involved with the Dairy Innovation Hub, and to see if there's questions that we can that can be fielded from those that are a part of the participation. At this time, I'm not seeing any questions. I'll keep watching that screen for that. But, you know, Mitch, as we have a couple minutes here to really talk about this investment is coming from the state of Wisconsin to put money to bring in the brightest minds from anywhere. It could be computers, it could be hydrology and human health. What are some of the things that you want to make sure we protect the most? And what is the message you want to leave with our legislators and our other leaders and fellow dairy producers about the Dairy Innovation Hub?
Well, I think what's different about the Dairy Innovation Hub is the fact that it's an investment in people. You know, we've done a really good job of, you know, building research labs and building some farms and building, you know, different places. But once we have that infrastructure built, what we really need to do is invest in people, and we need to invest in the brightest minds in the world and have them work on dairy. And so if we have this innovation hub where there's collaboration going on and we can get people across different fields, you know, communicating, the other thing that's going to allow us to do is, you know, writing grants and being a new startup professor at one of the universities, you know, writing grants to get funding is really a hard thing to do. And it's sort of like the chicken or the egg. Does the grant fund the money, or the money fund the grant, or whatever, however that works? It's really hard to get started. But once you get started and get going, your research just sort of builds on itself and allows you to get more grants. But the other thing that I think it's going to allow us to do is there's a lot of grant money out there to look for sustainability, to look at climate change, to look at all these things. And if we're able to take and leverage Dairy Innovation Hub, you know, take $1 of Dairy Innovation Hub money that the state invested and turn it into $2 that are coming into the state, boy, that's a win. You'll take that every day. And I think that's probably the biggest part of this investment is these researchers. I've heard it already today on the panels previous to this about how they're already looking at their next step and their next funding and where that's going to come from. And it's you know, you seed the money and then you watch it grow. And I think that's really going to be, when we sit back and look at it 5 years from now, I think that's going to be probably the major thing that has happened.
Shelly, I just would like to add too, for our lawmakers that might be listening, we've got such bright minds at our universities, and there's so many opportunities for innovation and different industries that are able to use innovation, but don't regulate it out of existence. So let's use the research and the data from our universities to make sure that it's environmentally sound, because farmers are true environmentalists, and we want to see what's best because we have our future generations that we want to see continue our farms. So don't regulate innovation away from our dairies.
That is so well said. And I think the other thing that would go on to that, Amy, is the fact that nowhere in this world are there people that are more creative and talented and have that perseverance to move forward. You empower your people in rural America and you will have a strong economy. So making that investment, as Mitch said, in research, giving us the answers to tomorrow's problems so that we can continue to lead the world in innovation here in the state of Wisconsin. It'll bring dollars in business that will have an impact on every single community, and it'll fuel jobs and opportunities in education. So for those who made it possible, we want to say thank you. For those that will be coming in as leaders, make sure that the Dairy Innovation Hub continues to be the shining star that helps stand behind the men and women of Wisconsin so that we can continue to be where the world turns for answers, research, and business. Thank you, and we'll sign off.
Thanks so much, Shelly, and to all of our panelists for another amazing discussion. Thank you so much.